Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to week 10 here of the Footballguys DFS Powergrid. It is presented by RotoGrinders.com. Great to be with you once again, getting you set for another week of daily fantasy action across FanDuel, DraftKings, wherever you may be playing. And as always, thank you for being a subscriber here of the YouTube channel for Footballguys. If you're listening to the podcast as well on RotoGrinders or the Audible, thank you so much. Leave a review, leave a thumbs up. Certainly helps us out. We've got Devin, we've got John, we've got Phil, and I am, of course, Dan Back. And, of course, this weekend, it's sizing up to be a pretty interesting slate here, to say the very least, boys. I actually think, in first glance, this might be the chalkiest week we have in DFS. I mean, it's Wednesday. We can't get freaked out about projected ownership, but we're seeing almost 50% on a player this week. So we're going to kind of dive in and how we need to address this in both cash games and GPPs this week. We'll be doling out all of our favorite plays. And Devin, catch us up a little bit on last week. Of course, we had episode number 100, and we have some winners and whatnot. So let's give the people the lowdown on what we need to know on that front.
So first of all, Dan, it's Thursday, not Wednesday.
Did I say Wednesday? Oh, my God.
And second of all, I'm right there with you because I dropped the ball this week. I don't have winners ready. We're going to do a special video sometime between now and Saturday that has a random drawing, announce the winners, all that good stuff. So check the Footballguys channel. We will link that video in the comments section or something. So
and we had a Footballguys DraftKings contest too. That if you won that, reach out to Devin as well, right? Because we can't get your DraftKings doesn't give us your information. So if you won that, hit up Devin and we'll get you taken care of.
What's the over under on the number of emails that I get? We'll figure out some way to validate it and figure it out. You'll have to join a free contest against me or something with that username. I don't know. We'll figure it out, but we're here. Some people think it's Wednesday. I don't know what day it is. I haven't. Smart is the new sexy. I'm drinking coffee at 9:00 at night. Let's go.
The days bleed in all together these days, guys. I'm telling you. But I will say, I had a good day at the county fair. Good day at the county fair with the kids today. Always a nice afternoon on this Veterans Day. And by the way, happy Veterans Day, John. Know you served. I love this day each year because I get to see that picture of you when you were young and you were thin and you are way better looking than you are right now. So thank you so much for your service, Mr. Tip and Pick.
Absolutely. I took the day off of work and went golfing badly, but I did go golfing and it was a nice day. And now I get to spend it with you yahoos talking about football. So, I mean, what more could I ask for?
Exactly. Well, let's jump into it. Week 10 is here, and we start with the totals from the Vegas side of things. We throw it to John, and at first glance, decent week on this front in terms of higher scoring games. We've certainly been up and down on this front, but this week looks like we're going to have a number of spots for us to target, which we should expect a lot of points.
Yeah, you had a couple games this week. I think 4 or 5 approaching that 50 point threshold that we like to talk about. The first one is Atlanta coming up against my Cowboys, who disappointed last week. As I predicted on this show, I did say that I thought that the Broncos were a good bet last week, and they came through, maybe much to my chagrin. I mean, they annihilated Dallas last week, and this week Dallas top of the Vegas value chart at almost 32 points. So we'll see whether or not it was a wake up call last week. The interesting thing there is Atlanta is actually slated to score about 23 points, and their players are pretty cheap, and there's not a whole lot of talent on that team. So we'll talk about whether or not there's some diamonds in the rough on that Atlanta squad that you might look into. Next on the board is Minnesota at the Chargers, and I think this is a really cool game because you got a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. The Chargers have a decent secondary, but this could go back and forth, and we've seen these offenses put up 30 points each. This is a game that you definitely could stack and should consider stacking. And of course, over the next 50 minutes or so, the guys here on the show are going to be able to walk you through which of the players on those teams that we like most. Next, very similar to the Cowboys game, you've got a big favorite in the form of Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tom Brady, traveling up to Washington, D.C. to take on the football team. The Tampa Bay Bucs have the second highest team total on the board this week at 30.5 points. And then lastly, you've got the Seahawks going over to Green Bay. This is a game that I think is pretty sneaky. We'll see whether or not Aaron Rodgers comes off of COVID and doesn't experience any issues from the NFL with some of the shenanigans that he was pulling around COVID and his vaccination or immunization or whatever he called it. This is a really interesting game because you got some questions there, and I wonder whether or not people are going to back away from it. This being it's Thursday. Sorry, this being Thursday. If people are going to be backing away from that game with questions around Russell Wilson not playing for a few weeks, and of course Aaron Rodgers and some other injury situations there. But I think it's a really interesting week. We're in double digits now, right? Week 10, over halfway, and yeah, let's talk football.
Yeah, let's get into it. Again, thank you guys for being subscribers. If you're not, make sure you get into that free newsletter you can find over at Footballguys. Doesn't cost a thing to get those emails that'll keep you updated all week long. Super important. I think this time of year where there's so many different things going on. Let's lead it off with Devin here on the quarterback position. And like John said, I think Rodgers is going to play this week. We know Sam Darnold is out. We're still waiting to see how that quarterback position is going to turn this week with the Cam Newton news. And Kyler Murray did not practice today. Colt McCoy got it done. Nothing worse than thinking you're smarter than the sports books by basically getting ahead of the Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins news and getting like a bunch of closing line value and it not mattering because Arizona still whooped San Francisco last week. But I think quarterback position this week is kind of interesting here. Josh Allen, bit of a dud last week. Here, Devin, what are your thoughts on him and the top plays at this spot?
Yeah, I mean, if you can afford it, Josh Allen is the clear-cut play this week going up against the Jets. I know he struggled last week against Jacksonville, but it was a weird game in which they fell behind. But this Jets pass defense, rush defense, every part of defense that you want to talk about might be the worst in the league. Marcus May, their star safety, is going to be out. Mac Jones threw for 307 and 2 touchdowns against this team. This is a game in which I'm just paying up for, if I can do it, paying up for Josh Allen this week. Not really afraid of the struggles that he had last week. If I'm going down, the question here is, where do you go? Because there's not a guy that's super cheap that I really like. I'll turn it to John or Phil. Is there anybody sub 6K on DraftKings that you're fawning over at the moment?
Carson Wentz is probably the only name under 6K that made me raise an eyebrow. I'm not crazy about it, but I think he's viable for cash. But I think the crowd's going to pay up. Allen, Prescott at 6,900 at, like a slight tier below the top guys. I think that's an attractive price versus Atlanta that a lot of people are going to go for. Herbert against the Vikings, Brady against Washington. There's a lot going on at the top there that you could choose from.
Yeah, very similar for me. I've got 3 quarterbacks, each ending in the 9s, 7,900, 6,900, 5,900 for cash game consideration. You guys already talked about 2 of them, those being Josh Allen, Carson Wentz at 7,959. The $6,900 quarterback is one who disappointed last week, that being Dak Prescott. I think this week he bounces back. That team was just set up last week, as I talked about on this show. It was a letdown spot. They did exactly what I thought they would do. I look for them to bounce back this week. I look for Dak to have a big game. 6,900. I think that he's one of the better plays for cash games. In fact, he's top on my board right now. But I don't discount any of the quarterbacks we talked about to this point for cash games. It really depends on your build and where you're going to save money on the remainder of the roster. And of course, we're going to talk about where there is value and where you might take chances to maybe slot in a Josh Allen. But the opportunity cost is always going to be the question there.
Yeah, I think this week is sizing up that you're going to be able to get one of those guys, especially if Kamara would not end up playing, which is still kind of in flux. So I think value is going to be plentiful. The tight end position is absolute trash this week, so it's likely to pay down there. So I think you're going to see so much of this filter to Allen and Prescott. And Wentz, I mean, I agree, like 59 is interesting, but I'm just a little bit more nervous about it after what the Jags did last week to Josh Allen in that offense. I mean, nobody's really slowed him down all year long, and Jacksonville just was all over the place. So it's indoors, it's at home, should be fine. Definitely in my player pool, but I'm probably paying up a little bit more in cash. But GPPs here, Phil, I think it's super interesting here because we're going to have spread out ownership like we do each and every week, usually at this position, and a lot of guys get overlooked. So where are the spots that we can, gain on the field and build some stacks off of?
All right. Well, I guess first of all, I don't think for tournaments at quarterback you need to really cut against the grain too much. I think the quarterbacks that we've named so far are the ones that deserve most of your attention. And then you could get unique elsewhere. There's a couple of guys that I'm looking at where the team total is high enough that they could potentially get there as contrarian plays, and that's Ryan Tannehill at 6,200 against New Orleans. No Derrick Henry. You got A.J. Brown. You got Julio Jones. How else are they going to score points? That running game looked pretty dismal, and you can't run against New Orleans anyway. Sneaky good 25-point total on the Vikings on the other side of that Chargers game. Kirk Cousins at 6,100. I could see building a stack or two there, even though I do like the running game better for Minnesota this week. There's a chance those points go up via the passing game. I don't know. Do we think Kyler Murray is going to play?
Yeah.
If he is, though, are you really that interested with him having a bum ankle? That's the concern. He hasn't been running since like week 4. If I knew he was 100% healthy, yeah, I'm interested. But
I'm with Devin.
I think they'll sit him. I mean, they won last week without him. They're really positioned well. I don't think they hurry him back personally.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, they're playing against PJ Walker, so there's no reason that they should rush him back. But I don't know, 1% Kyler Murray is going to be in my pool if he's active. I don't know. Your only other alternatives are like straight vomit stacks, and I don't think you need to do it this week. Ben Roethlisberger projects okay against Detroit.
No.
Tyler Heineke, or Taylor Heineke, rather. Projects okay against.
Can we just name every quarterback?
Yeah.
Let's stop.
Well, let's go to one game that you didn't bring up that has arguably two of the best quarterbacks in it, Green Bay and Seattle. I mean, this is a game that I feel like could have some shootout ability to it. People are overlooking these guys both, haven't played. Certainly Rodgers didn't play last week, but Wilson's been out a couple of weeks. Feel like this one could be very overlooked, John, especially in GPPs, because it's early in the week. And again, we're not 100% sure that Rodgers plays, but I think he does. But the fact that he's questionable will drive down that number as people build this week. And it's not like that Seattle defense is anything that's overly exciting. I think he's in play for tournaments.
Yeah, of course he is. I mean, it's one of those deals where, we don't get this very often, right? Where you get the quarterback, we were just talking about Kyler Murray. And the reason that Kyler Murray sometimes goes under-owned is he's got 4 receivers. He did have Chase Edmonds until last week's injury, and nobody liked to play him because you don't know where the action's going. With Green Bay, you know where it's going.
Yeah.
You've got a team stack there that you can go with basically Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams. Now, it's going to cost you. But that's fine because Devontae Adams has had, I think, three or four 100-yard games this season. So I love the call. And if Russell is back and himself, there's a lot of possibility that game goes back and forth. So I agree with you, Dan. I think it's a great game this week. Where I'm looking at quarterback for tournaments myself this week, and I don't want to bury the lead when we get into the running back situation, but there are a couple of running backs that are going to be fairly popular, namely Najee Harris and Jonathan Taylor. And both of these, one of them, Najee, is a guy that's just used in all facets of the offense, playing 90% snaps. And Jonathan Taylor, I'm sure we're going to hear Bill talk about how he's putting all his bankroll on him. And everybody else is going to as well. And for that reason, I'm looking at the passing game on both of those teams this week. Big Ben hasn't looked like Big Ben of old. And quite frankly, I don't think he's going to, but he's cheap. And Chase Claypool has an injury. And that narrows down kind of that window. I think Deontay Johnson and James Washington are both interesting this week. And that's going to drive some action for me towards Big Ben at 5,600 against a Detroit Lions defense that's been horrid all year. The same thing could be said for Carson Wentz. And I know, Dan, you expressed some concern there, but Carson Wentz at 5,900. If Jonathan Taylor doesn't score, the Indianapolis Colts have the fourth highest team total on the board at 29 points. I think there's some interesting GPP prowess there that you could take advantage of.
Definitely can play him in tournaments for sure.
Let me throw one more name out there for tournaments. Matt Ryan going up against Dallas. I think he's actually a cheaper way to stack the Dallas-Atlanta game. He's thrown for 330 yards or more in 2 of his last 3 games. And Dallas has allowed the 5th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks this season.
All right, let's give you a quick recap. Cash games, looks like Dak, looks like Josh Allen, and I think Carson Wentz could be in play if you needed to go a little bit cheaper. And we ran the gamut there in terms of the GPP options for you. All right, let's move on to running back here. And boy, it's early in the week, but I am seeing a massive rostership number here on D'Ernest Johnson. And I don't know if Chris Jimino is just what he was doing at RotoGrinders, but he's got him at 47.8% here. And these are tournament, numbers that we publish there. So I think in cash games, he'll probably be higher than that. Devin, I know you handle this from the Footballguys side of things. Do we really think D'Ernest Johnson's going to get that high in tournaments? And if so, what do we do? Because I think we can agree he's definitely a no-brainer in cash games when you consider that every other running back seems to be out on that team. And he looked pretty darn good in that one start he had as the featured back.
Yeah, I have him at 53%. So I think Jimino might be too low. People are going to look at that game and look at 4.7K and say, where else can I get 4.7K for a running back who's going to touch the ball 20 plus times? They have, to my knowledge, they have no other running backs on the roster that are currently practicing, and they're all out because of COVID restrictions. So I think he's going to be a no-brainer. He should be 100% owned in cash games. And if you're not doing that, I think you're doing it incorrectly, because I don't know that he has a prop number out, because theoretically it's Thursday and someone could have 2 negative COVID tests within 24 hours and come back. It seems like a long shot, but realistically, Jordan Howard, Ty Johnson, those are the running backs in that range, not overly appealing. So I think it's D'Ernest Johnson. The other guy that I think is going to get extremely chalky is Dalvin Cook going up against the Chargers. The Chargers have the worst run defense in football. They're allowing 5.3 yards per carry. Seemingly every running back is having monster days against them. Philadelphia ran the ball 37 times last week and only threw the ball 17. So I think Dalvin Cook, he tore up the Ravens last week, which is an impressive performance. Those are the 2 guys that I'm starting with.
Not Najee, huh? He's not.
I love Najee too. I love Najee too, but I prefer Dalvin. if I can get both, I'd love to play 6 running backs this week, to be honest.
It's definitely a 3 running back week because we didn't even touch up on James Conner as well with the absence of Chase Edmonds looking like he's got a feature role. John, I mean, how do you prioritize those guys for cash games, and is there anybody else that we're missing? And does Jonathan Taylor make your list?
Yeah, I mean, let's start with Dearness Johnson and his. I mean, I've got him, just for the record, 58% is his likelihood to achieve GPP value. So the 47% and 53% that we've heard is largely in line. I think if he gets north of 50%, though, you got to come away from him. He's still a a young player, and this is an offense that is hit or miss behind Baker Mayfield. So my recommendation would be 50% or higher, go under, and then after that, you probably play it by ear. The guys on my list, top of the list is Najee at 7,900 against Detroit. This is for cash game consideration, by the way. You already heard my GPP take on how you handle the Steelers. The 2 other guys that are on my list for cash do not include Jonathan Taylor, but that's largely because I know Phil's going to talk about him, and why should I waste my time? James Conner, the guy has killed me this year because I've been a Chase Edmonds fan just about every week. And now that Chase Edmonds is no longer playing, you've got Eno Benjamin slotting in there. We'll see how much, but they've loved to feed James Conner in the red zone this year. He's 6,300 as a 10-point home favorite. I know Devin was talking about this behind the scenes, these big home favorites this week. I think James Conner is interesting at 6,300. And then speaking of Devin, he's going to hate this one, but Leonard Fournette on the road against Washington at 6,100 is a guy that I've got to seriously consider for cash games.
Oh, come on. You're not going to play
There's so many good running backs this week.
There's no way you're playing him in cash games, John. Let's be real. Like, if you want to say he's tournament play, fine. You're not playing Leonard Fournette this week, okay? Like,
why wouldn't I, guys?
Because you're playing James Conner, you're playing Najee Harris, and you're playing Dearness Johnson.
Those are the
or
you're
playing Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook's a better play too.
I'm not playing Dalvin Cook in cash. There are 3 guys above Leonard Fournette on my model right now.
And how many running backs can you start in cash?
You can start 3, but I don't know that I'm going to be able to fit those guys in with my wide receivers, quarterbacks, and everything else. So the 4th guy on my list is Leonard Fournette, and I would be remiss if I didn't include him in the discussion.
Give me Ezekiel Elliott over Fournette.
Yeah,
7K.
Why does everybody hate Leonard Fournette on this show?
I mean, Washington, the way you beat them, too, is you throw the football against that just horrendous secondary. Like, that's the way you beat that team. It's not grinding it out with Leonard Fournette on the ground. So I just don't think he's cheap enough.
Receptions this year. He has 40 receptions.
30.
9.
30.
Okay. All right. There goes me talking about how good at math I am, Dan. 9, 12, 15, 19, 25, 30. He's right.
Uh-oh. Smart is the new sexy. That's not good, John. If you can't do the math, that's trouble. Okay, Phil, let's go to you here. Let's kind of get off of these cash game plays, but I do want to hear what you're going to do with Dearness Johnson in tournaments, because again, a lot of tournament play is looking at what the rest of the field does. And I mean, honestly, I'm super curious because my personal opinion is either go all in or you're going severely underweight. So you're nodding your head. Which side is that? Is it all in or is it go the other direction?
As of tonight, it's all in. He just projects too well for the price. I don't think you could leave him out. Listen, last time we saw him asked to shoulder the load, he did a pretty darn good Nick Chubb impersonation. You know, it was 22 for 146 and 1 against a pretty good Denver defense. In terms of dollars per projected touch, I mean, he's going to touch the ball 25 times. I think we know that. Cleveland's plan A and plan B on offense is to run the ball. I don't think the Patriots are good enough up front to stop him. I'm probably, as of tonight, going to have about 70%. But something that we didn't talk about, though, is that he might not be as chalky by the weekend as we think, because there are a number of situations materializing. One we talked about was Alvin Kamara. And I think if he's out, then Mark Ingram at 4,500 is going to pick up a chunk from Dearness Johnson. And then you've got both Patriots running backs with concussions, Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson. So if both of those guys can't make it back, you've got Brandon Bolden in that same price range. You've got J.J. Taylor a little bit lower. Why not? Brandon Bolden's been good this year. He catches passes.
He's not getting 20 carries.
But he could get 6 catches and the goal line work. I think you have to consider him at that point. So I don't know. It remains to be seen on if we're going to have to take that strong of a stance on Dearness Johnson.
I'll say this: a lot's going to have to go wrong for him to fall below 40. Like a lot, even with Bolden. Bolden's not going to get more than 5 to 10%. And Mark Ingram, he's not going to get crazy either.
I think he could go 20-ish, Mark Ingram, if he's definitely the starter. I mean, the Saints don't have anyone behind him either.
The issue there is the quarterback situation, right? Because they get inside the red zone, then you've got if Simeon is the starter, and he is, right? Is Simeon starting?
I think he is. I don't know if they've announced it yet, but Ingram caught 5 balls last week, sharing with Kamara.
I think the issue is that Simeon, if he's playing and it's not Winston, then you've got Taysom Hill coming in. Taysom Hill's going to come in inside the red zone, and then all of a sudden, the value that Ingram has, I think, goes down quite considerably.
Fair enough.
Can I interest anybody in Christian McCaffrey this week? Obviously was not a full workload last week, but still was fairly effective. He's 8,400, which, historically, if we were getting him at 8,400, let's put it this way. He was 9.9 week 1, 10K week 2, 88.7 week 3. So this is a pretty cheap price tag on Christian McCaffrey, but do we trust he is back to being the C-Mac of old?
I think the answer to that question depends on whether or not you believe in PJ Walker being able to run this offense.
He's not worse than Darnold, right? He can't be that much worse than Darnold, okay?
The XFL, brother.
He was okay in that. Was it XFL or was it the that other?
I think it was the AARP
or something. Yeah.
No, he was XFL, and he would have been the MVP of the XFL if they would have finished the season.
So we're starting the MVP of the XFL, and wasn't Dearness Johnson the leading rusher in the AAFL or something? Welcome to week 10, boys and girls. Buckle up.
I will say I'm going to throw. I have to throw my hat into the ring in support of Leonard Fournette. That's what I do on this show. But he's a tournament play. I can't imagine playing him in cash games, but in tournaments, especially there's another injury situation with Chris Godwin where he didn't practice today. And if that's the case, then we're going to see the ownership concentrate around Mike Evans stacked with Tom Brady in that game because, like Dan said, Washington's pass defense is horrendous. But at the end of the day, you've got Tampa playing as a 9.5-point favorite, and that's a Fournette game script where he could end up carrying the ball 20 times, and he always gets 5 targets. And if he's the one that ends up with a couple of touchdowns, you've got a spot where you need Fournette on your team to win.
Phil, there's no room for logic on this show. Stop it.
One more name. Mike White is back for the Jets starting. So Michael Carter is in play. He had 14 targets with Mike White against the Bengals. How else are the Jets going to move the ball against the Bills? I could see a lot of targets for Carter this week as a GPP play.
All right. Certainly want to remind all of you to leave us a thumbs up, leave us a comment in the comment section, and continue to consume the content on Football Guys and RotoGrinders the rest of the week because we do this on a Thursday, and we know that certainly come Saturday and Sunday morning, things look a lot different because of some of the injury news that we'll get more clarity on. So don't just use this by its own right. continue to use both of our services, and I think you'll help yourself building more winning lineups in DFS. Quick recap here on the running back position. Again, looks like major chalk this week on the Dearness Johnson bandwagon. Also going to see some James Conner. I like Dalvin Cook as well, but Najee Harris probably going to be mega chalk. So those are the cash game plays, unless you want to be John and play Leonard Fournette. But, not what I would do. Let's get to that wide receiver position, though. And, John, I'm going to leave it to you. I'm going to lead it off with you because, we've got a few injuries to monitor, like Phil just said. If Chris Godwin wouldn't play, man, I mean, it's just value central. Tyler Johnson sitting there at 3.3K. And we were already considering him when it was just Antonio Brown down. Claypool, he's not likely to play this week. So what are we looking at wide receiver here, John? Because it looks like we got lots of money to play with based on some of these values.
Yeah, I mean, I think you start at the top, and that's with how's Devontae Adams 7,900? Is that right on my list? I'm looking at it now. He came out as a high value play, but is he really 7,900? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
That is not an error in your spreadsheet. He is 7,900.
All right. Well, put him in first. He's the guy. After that, the names that are on my list, Deontay Johnson at 6,800 against Detroit, Keenan Allen against Minnesota at 7,000. And on the lower end, the current guy that comes out as a value play for me is Osborne in Minnesota at 3,400. This guy is pretty good this year in the time that he's played. And this is a game that, as we talked about at the top of the show, could go back and forth. The last name on my cash game list, and I'm just here to tilt.
Beasley, we know.
Yeah, you know what I'm going to say, right? You say it for me. Who is it going to be?
I just said it. It's the guy who doesn't want to get vaccinated.
Yep, that's right. Which tells me you kind of like him too. Cole Beasley.
What does that mean?
At 5,200 against the Jets. The last time I talked about him on this show, I'm pretty sure he delivered 4 or 5x value, despite the fact that I got chastised for talking about him that day. But those are the guys I'm looking at for cash games, and I'll hand it off and maybe on the back end talk about some of the GPP plays I'm looking at.
All right, Devin, what you got?
I'm still trying to process why John thinks that I like him because of that. But anyway. He forgets where I work. Anyway, I think that he caught a lot of the good names. Tyler Johnson is a good play in cash games. As I mentioned, I do like some top end running backs, so it's going to be hard to fit those in. I'm kind of looking at this Patriots situation, and I don't know where to go because are they going to be able to move the ball with Brandon Bolden? They ran the ball. They've been running the ball very heavily. Is someone like a Kendrick Bourne or a Jacoby Myers in play? I don't. They're going to throw the ball somehow.
People play Jacoby Myers every week, and I just don't get it. I know. Every week he's there. People play him, and he does nothing. So I'm not pressing that button.
He's like Devon Best back in like 2011 for the Dolphins, where he caught like 5 passes a game but would get 30 yards. Yeah, I don't have much, so go to Phil, and I'll come back with who was.
Phil, I got one question for you. How much longer can I martingale Stephon Diggs before I go broke? Yeah, because I keep playing him thinking it's coming. I keep playing him thinking it's coming. It's got to come. This guy was like arguably the best receiver in the league a year ago, and now it's just not there right now.
Yeah, he's not on my list this week. I guess I've gone to the well too many times. I don't know if it's Emmanuel Sanders, another viable receiver over there besides John's boy Cole Beasley. Dawson Knox, when he was healthy, stepped up a little bit. That could have taken another small chunk out of Diggs, and he's just not commanding what he was commanding last year. It's week 10. We might have to just say this is Stephon Diggs in 2021 and turn the page. So I agree with John. Devontae Adams, lock him in. a great tournament play despite the popularity. Seattle has no one for him. What I like doing though is I like the idea if you're open to the possibility that game shoots out, and we've mentioned a couple times that it might, and it could fly below the radar a little bit as a game stack. I like Tyler Lockett on the other side of that one. The last time we saw Lockett, it was before the bye week, and he put up a monster game catching passes from Geno Smith. The Packers secondary is not as scary without Jair Alexander back there. And they've let other speedy receivers who could operate in all areas of the field get over on them. Jamar Chase, huge game, 159 and a touchdown. Terry McLaurin, 122 and a touchdown since Alexander went out. And I think Lockett fits that mold a little bit more than DK Metcalf. And he's priced as though he's still catching passes from Geno Smith. So 6,500 I think is a pretty sharp price for to take advantage of on Lockett. And the other guy on my list here, Jerry Jeudy. So since he's gotten back, it hasn't exactly jumped off the page, his box scores, but I think that last week was quietly a step in the right direction. 8 targets, led Denver. That was good for a 32% market share of the team's targets last week from Teddy Bridgewater. He was on the field for over 75% of Bridgewater's dropbacks for the second straight week. And I feel like now that he's got his sea legs under him a little bit, we're going to start seeing him turn those targets into more explosive plays. So I think that he'll pad his floor with those heavy target numbers. And I think he's got some explosiveness that he hasn't shown yet this season.
I got 2 more. So
Okay.
I was expecting Phil to throw these names out, but Michael Pittman, I think, is in a really good spot. We talked about Carson Wentz. Pittman has 4 touchdowns over his last 3 games. T.Y. Hilton, I believe, is still out. Someone might fact check me there, but if he's out, I would definitely play Pittman. And then Russell Gage, I talked about Matt Ryan. I do like him at 5K as sort of a PPR guy. You're going to have to save some money this week. If you're going up to Adams, you're going to Harris, you're going to Josh Allen, these guys. But I think Gage is interesting.
John, you seem to have some opinions in GPPs that you wanted to tell us about.
Yeah. I was trying to find the T.Y. Hilton information, but I couldn't find it on the fly.
Real quick, he was practicing this week, but he has yet to clear the protocol. So there's a chance he plays, and being that he's T.Y. Hilton, there's also a chance that he sits.
And gets hurt the first play once he does play.
Only play Pittman in cash if Hilton is out.
Yeah, so I'll start with a player that's been mentioned here, and that's Stephon Diggs. Every week, I don't talk about it every week, but every week I'm old school. I make a sheet of players to talk about, and in the middle there, you'll see there are 3 names. These are my fades in case it comes up, and Stephon Diggs made the cut this week as a fade, I think for the second week in a row, if memory serves. He's just too expensive for the volume that he's getting. If you look at what he's getting in terms of team market share across the season, he's at 24%, which is pretty good. But Cole Beasley's at 20%, and you can get him for basically a third of 33% discount from Stephon Diggs, and a discount in ownership as well. So I'm fading him once again. The 2 names that weren't discussed, and I'm actually going to start with one, and then I'm coming to Devin on one of them because it's a Brown, and I'm guessing he knows already who that is. But AJ Green is back, 4,600 against the Carolina Panthers. We already talked about this Arizona offense with Kyler Murray likely coming back, maybe coming back. I don't know. AJ Green, nobody's talking about him. 4,600, very potent offense, and nobody's talking about him. I think, where do we have him for? Some early ownership, less than 5% is what I'm seeing. I don't know, Dan. What do you guys?
Yeah, we're at 2.5 right now.
So I think AJ Green's really sneaky at 4,600, and then of course Devin. I'm interested to hear what you think about Jarvis Landry. I was high on him last week, and he hurt me. I thought he was a really sharp play last week, and my model's calling back and saying go at him again against New England. We've got obviously a lot of questions with the Cleveland Browns rushing game. And hey, if you're going to have a running back that's worth 50%, maybe it makes sense to go with the preeminent wide receiver there in GPP situations and leverage in case Dearness Johnson doesn't deliver. So what do you think, Devin?
Yeah, I think Jarvis Landry is going to be really popular. I think he's going to be above 20% this week, which if he's above 20%, I don't know that I can play him this. I would actually look, if you want to fade this game or fade Dearness Johnson, looking at Donovan Peoples-Jones, who's more of the deep threat, big play type guy, then who's going much, much, much lower from a roster percentage than Jarvis Landry. Look, Jarvis Landry sort of is what he is. I mean, he's had two games this year with 8 or more targets, and in those games, he had 37 yards and 65 yards. Odell Beckham didn't really have a role, so I think we're expecting like a lot of volume to be available in Cleveland when if Odell Beckham's not producing, it's not like there's this great market share that could be had in Cleveland. So I don't think Landry's role is going to change all that much. So at 20 plus %, he's a fade for me this week.
As I always say, it comes down to ownership. And if he's over 20%, I agree with you. Dan, what does Jamino have him at as of today? Sorry, I should have asked.
You guys are at 19.
19. Okay.
19.
Yeah, so we're right at that number. Yeah. Yeah,
I'm looking at another number from another site. If he's that high, then he's not a good GPP play. So I may pull back on that.
I'll give you a good GPP play. He's the 4th highest priced wide receiver on the slate. So I don't think anybody's going to play him. But Terry McLaurin versus Tampa, I think is interesting. The way that you can score against that Tampa defense is taking advantage of that secondary. And this is one of those like DK algo type deals. Just feels almost overpriced, but it's probably for a good reason. So I think at probably sub 5%, he's the guy that I would want. And especially if you're running any Brady stacks out there, he's somebody that I would easily run back. But I think he's interesting for tournaments because the price is not a value by any stretch, but I think he's got a pretty high ceiling. So going to make reference to him. All right. Quick recap of the wide receiver position. Again, from cash game point of view, I think we're looking at Devontae Adams, Deontay Johnson. I think we could consider Michael Pittman, especially if T.Y. Hilton is out. And keep your eye on the situation around Chris Godwin. I think Mike Evans, really good play, probably regardless, but gets a little bit of a bump without Godwin. But Tyler Johnson moves into that number 2 role in that offense that wants to throw the ball, and he is dirt cheap at 3.3K. So he's somebody who is going to gain, I think, a heck of a lot of steam as we come closer to the weekend. All right, let's move on to the tight end spot. And man, what a craptastic week we have here, guys. No Kelsey, no Andrews, no Waller. It is no Gesicki, who's been a stud. It is just an absolute mess of a position here. And usually when that's the case, John, I just kind of find the cheapest guy that's viable and save the money. That's probably my plan this week. What are you going to do?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I mean, the most expensive guy on the board this week is Kyle Pitts, and it'll be interesting to hear what the guys have to say about him. I think he's in play if you want to go. If you want to go with him in cash game, I don't know that you can get there though, just based on the value that's available. Maybe you can, but there's going to be opportunity cost elsewhere. You likely have to go with a KJ Osborne or somebody at wide receiver in order to get him. The one that kind of stands out for me in cash games is Jared Cook going up against Minnesota at 3,200. It's right in line with what you were talking about, Dan. All you're hoping for is 4 or 5 catches, 40 or 50 yards, and look, if he falls into the end zone, you've done it. On the GPP side, I like the opposite side of that same game. And I think this is one of Phil's plays typically is Conklin going up against the Chargers. He's 3,400. a guy that brings some upside to the table in a game that, again, we've been talking about, I think, at every position this week. So that should tell you something, that this game is worth stacking. And then I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are collectively around Freiermuth, Penn State product, a couple touchdowns on, it was a Monday night, I think. His salary was likely released before then at $3,900. Although Eric Ebron, from what I saw, was probably coming back. And so I guess that, how does that affect our stance on Freiermuth? Did he earn the time that he saw on Monday night? Is he going to see that moving forward, or is he fool's gold coming off of that 2-touchdown game, despite the fact that he's $3,900? And the fact that we're talking about Conklin, Freiermuth, and Jared Cook, and those are the top plays at tight end, tells you how scant this position is.
It's Freiermuth for me in cash. I'm playing him. 3 touchdowns in his last 2 games. Are they really going to go back to Eric Ebron? Does he move the needle at all?
Probably not.
Like, how old is Eric Ebron at this point? 42? Probably much younger than that. But we talked about last week, tight ends over 32 years old are washed up. So I'm sure Ebron is over 32. And Dan is like trying to get out of here with
Eric Ebron
backing out of it real quick.
28 is how.
What?
Yeah, he's 28.
He just feels like he's been around forever. Freiermuth is a guy that they spent a lot of draft capital on FanDuel at 5,100. He's almost a plug and play. I think he's going to be the chalk very easily this week. Kyle Pitts, I can't do it because his big games were with Calvin Ridley. He hasn't shown that he has the ability to beat the focal point of the defense, which over the last 2 games, he just has 5 catches. So his price is still too high for me until further notice.
Yeah, I think Freiermuth is fine. I mean, he was a touchdown god out there at Penn State too. Like, he was a really good college player. We know the track record of tight ends from that school as well. So I like him. I don't love the numbers that are coming in on him from, ownership side of thing. I think it's going to be a little bit higher than I'm comfortable with. And that's why I'm going to really endorse here Noah Fant for just $400 more at way less ownership against an Eagles defense that's allowing the most fantasy points to tight ends this season. So the matchup is good. The price isn't bad. And everybody was just like, oh, gotta play Alberto last week. I didn't play Alberto last week. He was fine. I really wanted him to dud so freaking bad. But I'm willing to go to Noah Fant this week because I think, yeah, we want to go cheap, and he's still pretty cheap. Like, we want to go dumpster diving. I get it, but Fant's a good player. So
I like it.
I think he might be the guy I finish with in cash. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, Fant was on my list for the reasons that you mentioned. I do wonder, though, if Jerry Jeudy returning caps his upside a little bit. But, if he gets in the end zone especially, I think he'll be fine. I think it's a week to get kind of weird at the position because I don't feel like following the crowd on chasing the Freiermuth touchdowns. I think you do kind of like what John said, and I don't know if this was the reason that he did it, but the most fertile ground for tight end fantasy production, i.e. touchdowns, that's what you really want them to do is fall into the end zone. It's going to be on a heavy home favorite with a high implied team total. Jared Cook did fit the bill. The gentleman that I am looking at is a bit thinner than Jared Cook, although I will say Jared Cook split time 3 ways last week with Steven Anderson and with Parham.
He's tilting.
Yeah, so, it remains to be seen how that's going to play out. But I'm looking at another timeshare guy that I think could provide leverage, and that's Mo Alley Cox. Mo Alley Cox, I love watching the guy play. I just love watching him catch passes and run. He's just so much bigger than everyone else. It's fun.
He's massive.
But with tight end being a wasteland, I think there are some signs in Mo Alley Cox's favor. 60% snap share in 2 out of the last 3 games. Last week, he ran a route on a season-high 64% of dropbacks. Might have had to do with the game getting out of hand there against the Jets. But Colts are at home, favored by 10.5, implied to score 28.75, and Alley Cox is tied for the team lead with 3 red zone touchdowns. If he's the one that happens to get a couple of short ones, that will really push you past the Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman holders.
And I think, well, let me throw one other name too here, because I think in tournaments you can get a little strange here, and the usage that Hawkinson's been getting has been pretty freaking good here. And I know the matchup we don't love against Pittsburgh, but they're likely going to be trailing. But targets the last 3 weeks are 11, 9, and 11. First 2 games of the year, 23 and 20 fantasy points. Those are GPP winning performances, probably based on the other guys at this position. And especially with tight end, if there's one guy that kind of goes off and goes ham and the rest of the position sucks, you need to have him to win these tournaments. So I think you're absolutely crazy if you're MMEing and not having a decent amount of Hawkinson, because I think he's one of the few guys who kind of falls into that category of a slate breaker at the tight end position. There's not many, so don't exclude him by any measure.
Can I throw one more name out there? And this is where Dan just like, all right, let's move on.
No, we're good, man. We're good.
I'm saying it because of the name that I'm about to throw out.
Are we gonna eject Devin from the stream here? What do we got?
We might, but I have the controls, so you guys can't do that. With no Chris Godwin, any love for OJ Howard? 2,700. Like we were just talking about Tyler Johnson. Like,
is he better than Cameron Brate? Right
That's
now,
the
he's,
issue.
I mean,
that's the issue, right? I mean,
yeah.
Let's say you could take if you could take Cameron Brate and OJ Howard and add them up and get both of their collective stats. I think it was 5,500 if you add them up, maybe. But they're going to split time, and you're going to guess wrong. It's going to be one. You're going to go with Cameron Brate. It's going to be OJ Howard, or vice versa. For me, it's I in fact, I've already X'd them out of my pool.
So at less than like 2%, I think if you're saying it's going to be one or the other, that implies that like you have a 50-50 chance of being right there. I don't think it's the worst play as a deep GPP play if you're playing 20 or more lineups.
I don't think it is either, especially if like we don't get that tight end that just goes ham, because then it probably won't kill you where he ends up.
I still have flat. So the problem here is the national championship game is still just burned into my brain, where OJ Howard had like 200 yards, and I think he's this deep threat, and he's just not. So I just can't. It's sort of like how the Clemson, and this is a whole Clemson barely lost to Georgia. College football just screws with your brain. Don't watch it, folks.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. That's my biggest fault of DFS as a DFS player, and you've seen it on this freaking show time and time again, is that I see things in the past and I'd be like, well, that's going to happen again. Stephon Diggs, dude was freaking great last year. Why can't he freaking be great again this year? And I keep playing, and I keep playing, and I keep playing, and I keep losing, and I keep losing, and I keep losing. So at some point in time, you got to get away from that bias that you have. And OJ Howard might be it for you from college.
One more week.
One more week? Yeah, that's what we say.
One more
week of Stephon Diggs. One more week. All right. Again, quick recap here of the position. Looks like Pat Freiermuth is going to be kind of chalky here. We didn't mention Dan Arnold. I think he's in play too at 3.5. He's done nothing but garner heavy targets since he's come over, and actually kind of been a little bit more useful, I think, every single game. So he's still cheap at 3.5. Jared Cook at 3.2. A couple of mentions here as well. And I'm a Noah fan. I think if you could fit him in cash, I think he's a pretty good play this week. So give him some consideration. All right, team defense, our least favorite position to handicap, and it's probably going to apply again this week. It's interesting. We haven't mentioned a single Titan and a single Saint this entire show. I don't think that outside of like the possibility of playing Mark Ingram, if Kamara is out, nobody mentioned a single Titan. Nobody, like nothing.
We mentioned Tannehill.
Did you?
Yeah.
Well,
Both Phil and I did.
Man.
You're on mute, Phil.
Phil, you gotta turn your microphone on.
My bad. I mentioned every quarterback, so I don't blame you for forgetting about Tannehill, Dan.
But I think those defenses are certainly in play. But again, this is nothing is really standing out as mega chalk. Last week, I know the Chiefs were up there, the Cardinals, or excuse me, San Francisco. That didn't pan out. But this week, I think right now we're projecting 10% at the highest right now on the Titans. So what do you guys got here? Anything? Anybody? Floor is open.
It's the first week in a while that there hasn't been a cheap defense that's fairly obvious. I think last week the Chiefs were, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
This week, the two offenses that came out high for me were, and for what it's worth, I'm not sure I would suggest it, but I'm at least sharing it. The Cardinals going up against Carolina and PJ Walker at 3,700. They're my number 2 defense in terms of value, which somewhat surprised me at 3,700. But the number 1 defense is actually opposite, Dan, what you said, and that's the Tennessee Titans at 2,600 against New Orleans and the quarterback situation there. So those are the two in cash. I think if in GPPs, the one that came out for me from a likelihood to achieve GPP value versus ownership was really around the Green Bay Packers at home against Seattle with a quarterback that hasn't played in a few weeks. I don't know. We'll see.
I'll take one of two teams. I'm either taking the Eagles going up against Denver. Denver's second in the league in sacks allowed, or the Browns going up against a rookie quarterback. Phil, I know Mac Jones is at home. I know, but the edge rushers for Cleveland, they're second in the league in sacks given. So it's one of those two for me.
Cleveland was on my list for GPPs. I guess I just hate Mac Jones and wish that he would fail. I have the same 2 on my list for cash as John. If you could get to the Cardinals, do it. If not, the Titans against Trevor Siemian or whatever it is that New Orleans plans on throwing out at quarterback. And I actually like the other side of the Denver-Philly game. I think Denver's defense is solid. They showed it last week in that surprise win against Dallas. And Jalen Hurts, if he's forced to play catch-up, that's going to result in some turnovers. And he also holds the ball pretty long, so they could get some sacks. So I like Denver for tournaments.
You're terrible, John. I'm just reading the private chat right now. You are just absolutely the worst. Way to throw me off. Okay, I'm not even going to talk about defense. We got enough discussion there. What I'm going to tell you guys, what I want you to do this week too, this is something that we do at RotoGrinders for all sports. We do it once a year. It's called our single entry series. It's over on FanDuel. You can see it right on the front page of FanDuel. It's got our RotoGrinders logo right next to those tournaments. Single entry contests, I think we all agree, are a ton of fun. Everybody's on the same footing. And we're running a series here where it's a multi-week contest, but it's only your, I think, 3 best scores count in this. So be sure to play in it over. They've got different price points. So if you're a low stakes player, middle stakes, high stakes, they've got 3 different options for you. So that's over on FanDuel. I think this is week 3 of it. So not too late to get involved in any way. Support single entry and limited entry contests, because if you don't, they won't grow. And I know, John, you agree with that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to, one of my favorite things to do every week is to pick my favorite GPP lineup and enter it in all the single entry lineups. It's a high risk, high reward tactic, but you can win a lot of money if you hit on that single lineup across those single entry tournaments. So please definitely play into that. And as Dan said, there is this single entry series over there where you can gain a little bit of notoriety in the process.
Yeah, we got a little leaderboard as well, all that good stuff. That's going to do it for us this week. We appreciate you joining us as always here on the Footballguys DFS Power Grid presented by RotoGrinders.com. If you're not a subscriber of either or two services, check it out. Give it a try. I think you'll enjoy it. I think you'll find optimizers available on both platforms. A lot of information right up until roster lock. And as always, free to join both RotoGrinders and, of course, get some of those free emails as well from that newsletter that you get from Footballguys, which keeps you updated all week long and super, super useful. So we're out of here. We'll be back again week 11. Good luck in all your contests. For Devin and John and Phil, I'm Dan. Talk to you next week. See you, everybody.